My mom was a homemaker and my father a state highway worker, and we lived in this trailer on a farm up in Londonderry, New Hampshire. My dad hadn't graduated from high school and would take on odd jobs to support the family and get us by. He got this job with this family named the Zimmerman family up in Manchester, New Hampshire, cutting trees. Dad became kind of the unofficial groundskeeper for the Zimmerman house. Mow the lawn and rake the leaves and trim the bushes. During the winter, when the ice would jam up on the terracotta tiles, chip the ice. Sometimes our whole family, even my brother and later my sister, would go up and work on the house. Mrs. Zimmerman would always have me come into the house and show me postcards and books on art. I always remember the living room, the long couch, probably at least 12 feet long. It turned out that this incredible house was one of the only Frank Lloyd Wright houses in New England. Along the fireplace, Wright had removed every other brick, and within the bricks he had put chunks of glass, and behind these chunks of colored glass there were lights. And every so often Mrs. Zimmerman would turn the light on, and it would light up like a Christmas tree to entertain me as a child. Dad, like a lot of dads, he had said, "Oh, well, my kid draws." And Mrs. Zimmerman said, "Well, have him come up and bring some drawings." And they were just kid drawings, but she clearly connected with them. And oddly and weirdly, from that point on, she was patron for this child, surrounded by all of their artwork, watching my family laboring outside. Mrs. Zimmerman got me and our family a subscription to National Geographic. I loved pouring through that magazine and learning about the world. She would send me for art lessons at the Currier Gallery of Art. Just amazing. Later, when I was in high school, she sent me to the pre-college program at Rhode Island School of Design. It was like the final catalyst that I needed to really believe that I could go to college for the arts. It made me a real artist. And this was in a family where nobody directly had even gone to college. I would go up to see Mrs. Zimmerman throughout my whole life, and whether I was in high school or in college, and I would give her updates on art projects and things that I was doing and the garden that I was growing. Around that time, Mr. Zimmerman had Parkinson's disease, and it crippled him dramatically. But if you talked to her about art, Mrs. Zimmerman would absolutely sparkle. She had been trained as a nurse. So as her husband became very sick, she was absolutely determined that she was going to care for him in the house and not have him in a nursing home or have him in a hospital. She had placed the bed, this medical bed with all of this equipment around it and the things that he needed. In the middle of the living room, there was this bed and this man completely confined to it, literally framed by the architecture of the room that he loved so much, surrounded by the art that they had collected over all these years. My freshman year, Mr. Zimmerman passed away, and it didn't seem too long afterwards that Mrs. Zimmerman passed away. Their love was, in my opinion, perfect and often completely unspoken, and I know she died of a broken heart. What they loved the most was this house by Frank Lloyd Wright, and they loved art, and they nurtured me through what they loved best. I remember one day asking my mom and dad if this bothered them, that I was in the house enjoying this exposure to art, and here they were outside. I remember Mom just saying, "That's where you're supposed to be." I ended up freelancing for several years. I now am assistant director of career programs at Rhode Island School of Design to help and guide people and to connect with other artists. It's what Mrs. Zimmerman did for me in those early years. I hope she knows that one person really can make a huge difference in a person's life. I hope in some ways I have too.